Hi there, Mandy Friedman here, licensed professional clinical counselor, clinically certified domestic violence counselor, clinically certified trauma professional level 2, the creator of SNAP survivors of narcissistic and abusive personalities. I'm here with Doug Buggle, and he has written a book, Goodbye, Tammy, Third Time Was Not a Charm, Surviving Narcissistic Abuse. Doug is a survivor. And a lot of the people that are watching or listening today are survivors as well, or people that are really interested in the topic of narcissism, narcissistic abuse, and recovering from narcissistic abuse. And Doug, you were introduced to me by someone who came to see me for this specific type of issue, someone who knew you and said, hey, you should talk to Doug. You guys would really hit it off. You have some things in common. And so here we are. Thank you, Doug, for spending the time today to talk to me about your book and about your experiences. Would you mind just taking a few minutes and introducing yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. My name is Doug Buggle, and I'm, 54 years old now, and I am an author of the book and a father of two. I wrote the book because I wanted to tell my story. And when this all happened to me 4 years ago, I didn't understand narcissism. I didn't know what it was. I had no clue. I just knew what was happening to me wasn't normal. It was very cold and calculating, and I couldn't understand it. I couldn't wrap my brain around it. And I guess I was one of those types of people that obviously I was deep in the trauma bond, but I didn't know what that was at the time. I just needed to find out why my ex-wife was doing what she was doing to me during our divorce and separation. It started with the temporary separation is when it started. Well, the whole marriage, as it turns out, it was happening. But again, I didn't know that. I just knew I asked for the temporary separation because I knew something wasn't right. Something was off. I wasn't myself. I didn't know what it meant to be walking on eggshells. I didn't know about manipulation and gaslighting and devaluing. I didn't know those terms. I just knew that I wasn't myself. When I realized what was happening to me is when I wrote the book. And it was basically just to tell my story because I was seeking answers on Facebook forums and different online groups for men because I wanted to know, originally I wanted to know, are there podcasts out there for men? Is there help for men? And I know that a lot of women go through this as well, more women than men. But a lot of men go through this. And I felt like the men needed a voice. And a lot of men suffer in silence. And so abuse has no gender sort of became my battle cry. And the book was just to tell my story. It's sort of a timeline of events. Obviously, I go into my background a little bit, my childhood. But I mainly focus on the marriage, the downfall of the marriage, and then the separation, the divorce. It's kind of a timeline. So if you read my book, you're kind of in it with me. It's like you're like, whoa, this is like, you're in it. And then the last half of the book, or I would say the last quarter of the book is more focused on narcissism, the different types, how to get help, symptoms, signs, how to go no contact, stuff like that. And so the book is really just me expressing what I went through and hoping that it would help others. That was my only goal. My goal was to help someone else. And the mutual friend we have in common was one of the first person that reached out to me online who got my book. And I was blown away. And I helped him, and so that I still get emotional sometimes about that because it's like, wow, I never thought in a million years that I could help others, and that's why I did what I did.
You mentioned just a second ago childhood. And I'm curious, as you have been processing what happened to you and healing from it, when you did go back to childhood, did you find anything that would be a precursor to a narcissistically abusive relationship? A lot of people don't realize how much our childhood or previous situations do play a part in how we got where we are today. So for example, if someone was raised in a codependently enmeshed family system with, a parent who was high conflict or had a toxic personality or a substance use disorder, and that family, kind of orbits the sickness and we wind up living around the sickness. That's an example of maybe an origin story of somebody who would wind up in a narcissistically abusive relationship. But then again, there are people that they never had any kind of experiences whatsoever before they experienced it in an intimate partner situation. So did you have that sort of familial history as well, or was this brand new for you?
The narcissism was brand new for me. But I did go back and I spoke to my mom at length. I spoke to my sister at length. I'm the youngest of only one other sibling. My parents were married for 54 years until my dad passed away in 2021. I'm very close with my mom. And I tried to go back and try to figure things out from my childhood, because my pattern, I had this unhealthy pattern of wanting to always please women. And so I went from, remember, third time was not a charm in the book title means the third marriage. My ex was also married 3 times. And I had 2 wives before her, which were not narcissists. I have my oldest daughter from my first wife, my son from my second wife. I'm amicable and friendly with both of them, actually really close with my son's mom. And they were, normal divorces, if you can call any divorce normal, right? So I'm like, well, it didn't come from there. So I went back. When I was 9 months old, I got spinal meningitis, and I almost died. I had less than a 50-50 chance of surviving. And I talk about that in the book. I talked to my mom about it. My mom sort of became this helicopter mom, wet blanket over me, very overprotective. I wouldn't leave her side up until the age of like 10. I developed this, I think, unhealthy habit of just wanting to please women. And I've had issues with my sister over the years. We're good now. But I've had ups and downs with my sister in our relationship. My sister is very outgoing, very independent, very strong-willed, and, opposite of me. I'm very close with my mom, and she's okay with me saying certain things. It was, I think it was unhealthy childhood, and the only way is my mom covered for my dad a lot. He was an alcoholic, not an abusive alcoholic, not abusive. He was a sort of a closet alcoholic. He was, had some issues with gambling back in the day. Later in life, he was not. Okay. But she covered for him. Back in those days, the generation was sweep everything under the rug. Don't tell your kids about anything, hide the problems, mask the problems. I was never taught to deal with conflicts, issues, problems in a healthy way. I think that's the best I can explain it. And so as I grew up, I was always seeking the attention from women. And I literally went from my first wife to my second wife to my third wife with no gaps in between. At 50 years old, I had never really lived on my own for any, long time to where I could work on myself and I could figure myself out, right? So I think that's where my codependency came from. So I'm definitely a codependent, and I'm a people pleaser. I'm got a good heart, and I'm a super good guy, and I'm a really empathetic person. So I'm an easy target. I'm a very easy target for a narcissist.
I like how you said you're an easy target, because so many people who experience this, they feel that they themselves are the person who is the origin story of the problem, that they choose this person or that they choose the wrong people. I'll hear stories where the person will be like, the target will be like, well, I'm the one that asked them out. I pursued the relationship. It wasn't them, targeting me. But when I go back and look through it and we get real honest about it, you can see that, yeah, okay, maybe there was an initial attraction there, but they ultimately decide whether you're someone that they're going to be able to work with or not. And when I say work with, I mean, they're looking for specific types of traits that will allow them to carry out their behaviors and manipulations. And so when you say target, do you feel like that those codependent tendencies and the needs to please are the types of qualities that narcissistically abusive and manipulative people, that's what they're looking for, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for someone that they can take advantage of and manipulate and control and feed off of to fill their supply, because they themselves aren't good people, deep down. And there's so many different types of narcissists, but in my case, I fully believe she was female covert narcissist, vulnerable narcissist, comes off very fun and charming and witty and a very good person in public, leader in the community. Anywhere she goes, people love her, and she's so nice and sweet. And then behind closed doors, it's a completely different story.
Tell me about the difference between what is shown outside of the home or the relationship, and then what happens then when no one's watching.
In my particular case, there was just a lot of devaluing. I think this is a really important part to talk about, is like the sexual part, for a covert narcissist, men and women, right? It's flip-flopped in a little different ways, but what attracts the man to the female covert narcissist, especially if they're attractive, is sex, right? It's what men want. It's hyperactive. It's very sexual. It's right away. It's because they know that's what you want. And then as time goes on, that becomes less and less. It's weaponized against you. Affection goes away. The intercourse goes away, and then it's used against you in a way of, well, you're not doing this for me, so I'm not going to do that. Because we went 2 years at the end of our marriage without having sex at all. That in itself, for a man, starts to emasculate you, right? And she emasculated me big time. And then she's not attracted to an emasculated man. It's really crazy. I had a therapist tell me that. She's like, she emasculated. You were her Superman in the beginning. She put you on the pedestal. I could do no wrong, right? I was the best husband, best stepfather to her children. I was there for everything. I financially supported them in the beginning. And then the emasculation begins, and it's subtle. I mean, if it was this one big glaring thing in the beginning, you'd head for the hills. You'd be like, screw this, I'm out of here, right? It's little tiny things that happen over time that I call it in the book, micro moments in time. One day good, one day bad, one day good, 2 days bad. And it's this back and forth, and it slowly erodes and eats away at your self-esteem and that your confidence as a man. And then at some point it gets to a point where it's like micro moments in time until everything just blows up. And some people, it doesn't blow up. Some people, they'll die in a relationship 40 years and continue on that way. But most of the time, I believe it blows up at a certain point when they turn on the charm and they need you to grab something for them they forgot and bring it over to their work, or they need you to do this or that. And now I'm suddenly, I want that dopamine hit. I want that, make her happy all the time. And so I'm excited and I'm like, oh my gosh, now she needs me and I can be a good boy and I can do this for her. And it's that quick moment of hit of dopamine and you're praised again. And then everything's good. And then you think, oh, okay, good. This is good. She loves me. And then the next day it goes back to the devaluing.
So we're talking about devaluation. We're also talking about the deprivation and reward cycles, right? Mm-hmm. And, in your typical narcissistically abusive relationship, the devaluation, the abuser aims for what you feel are the important qualities that you have, the things that you're actually proud of and that make you who you are or would make you a good person. And the devaluation is a process of robbing you of those things. So for example, if someone is particularly proud of how they mother their children, then that's going to be a point of devaluation. Then the narcissistically abusive person is going to say, you're not a good mother. In fact, your kids would be better off without you. Remember when you did this or that? And so-and-so cried because you said such and such. You're not a good mother at all. And you didn't even have a good mother yourself. How would you even know to be a good mom? So they figure out what you find important about yourself or what you think your good qualities are. And then that's what they target to devalue and take away from you. And one of the things that you mentioned was, that being a man, what does it mean to be a man? And the meaning of your gender and what you're proud of about being a man, right? And that being devalued and targeted within the relationship has an emasculating effect. Women we don't have that same, we're not defeminized. So it's hard to create the parallel, but we can definitely identify with that weaponizing of your good qualities. If you think you're patient, then you're going to be called impatient. If you think that you're generous, you're going to be called greedy, right? Can you give us some examples of the devaluation?
I'm an off-roading junkie. I've got a Jeep that's lifted, and it's got all the armor and all the stuff on it because we do rock crawling and stuff. So we bought this Jeep way back when I was with her. It was a cool Jeep. Well, one day she comes out a couple of days after we bought it, and she's like, oh my God, I was just on the Jeep website, and you need to call Jeep because there's a defect that if we get rear-ended, it could explode. I said, it's fine. No, you have to call. And the next day I called Jeep. I'm like, hey, I've got a 96. That's an old Jeep. I got a 96, and I heard it's got a recall. And the guy's like, yeah, I looked it up, and he goes, yeah, we can come bring it in, and we'll fix it for you, or we'll add the part. I'm like, what's the part? He goes, a trailer hitch. I'm like, a trailer hitch? Yeah, it protects you. I go, okay, let me tell you about my Jeep. And I told him everything that it has on it, these huge steel bumpers, and it's got a 1/4-inch steel plate around the gas tank. And he laughed at me and he says, why are you calling me? And I'm like, my wife wanted me to. Okay, whatever. So I go home, I tell her all this, and she just looks at me and she goes, oh, okay. And then I said, and then we were going to go Jeeping and have to tow it. And I said, well, we're going to tow the Jeep. She goes, with what? I said, your Tahoe. My Tahoe can't tow the Jeep. Yes, it can. Why do you? And she had me go on and check the weights and all the things. She just doesn't trust me. And when I finally proved to her that it could tow it, she looked right at me and goes, well, do you even know how to tow a vehicle? And I just looked at it. And then you got to understand, this was way into the marriage. There's already been so many examples. And her daughter is standing there, and my ex-stepdaughter, and she goes, my dad knows how to tow. And I just walked away, and I looked at her and I said, you do not trust me with vehicles at all, do you? And she goes, no, I don't. And this was just dehumanizing as a man. Like, it's like, I maintain our vehicles. I do brake jobs. I do all these things. I've been doing this for a long time, and I know how to work on cars. And I'm just like, you just don't trust me. And it was just the way she was saying it and the way she was coming off, like, you need to go check all these things that are ridiculous, by the way, and then come back to me with the information. She didn't get the information she wanted. She would just be like, oh, well, do you even know how to tow a Jeep? And she would try to come up with something different. There was another one where she always played this game with me. If I was late on a bill, or if something wasn't paid, or if she may suspected that I did something she didn't like, she would come up to me, and instead of just saying, hey, I got the bill for the water, it's late, are you going to be able to pay it this week? Like a normal person, she would go, is there something you want to tell me? Is there something you're hiding from me? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why don't you tell me? So it was always this question and answer game, right? So one day her best friend asked me to hang a TV at her house. I went, hung the TV at the house, forgot my drill there. And I come home, and her friend had obviously called her and said, hey, Doug forgot his drill. Can you let him know? Normal person, you walk in the door, hey, so-and-so called me, you forgot their drill. Oh, shit, okay, thanks, I'll pick it up tomorrow. No, I walk in the door, and she's laying on the couch, and she, as soon as I open the door, she goes, are you forgetting something? Before I even say hi. And I go, what are you talking about? She goes, so-and-so called me, you forgot something. And I'm like, why don't you just tell me what I forgot? No, why don't you go out to the car and figure it out for yourself? And I'm like, I'm all sheepish. I go out to the car. I look for 5 minutes. I realize I forgot my drill. I come back in the house. She's still laying there on the couch. And I go, oh, I forgot my drill. She starts sarcastically clapping her hands and goes, good boy. You figured it out. Good job.
Those are really good examples. Treating you like that you're incompetent, treating you like you're a child, and putting you on the defense. You're constantly feeling like you need to defend yourself or explain yourself. And even years later, I have found that feeling the need to explain, we have to actually unlearn that in our healing process. I find a lot of my clients over-explain a lot of the time, and it's because they were with someone that treated them that way, of quizzing them and feeling like you're being interrogated, treating you like you're incompetent, or like you are a child that you can't handle regular life. What would you do without them to keep, to keep everything together? Those are really good examples of devaluation. Now, you touched a moment ago too on the cycle of deprivation and reward, and you gave a little bit of an example there, but could you talk a little bit more about that, what that felt like for you, that feeling of like never quite being enough, or feeling deprived and then just happy to get the scraps?
So a really good example of what happened on the regular was she worked across the street from our house. We just happened to be across the street from the school she worked at. So she would walk every morning, and then I would get ready and drive off to work. And there were multiple times where she would call me, text me, and pour on the sweetheart, I forgot my glasses, or I forgot my Diet Coke, or forgot my lunch that I packed. Could you please bring it to me? And I'm like, right then, I feel the excitement. I feel the rush, and I'm like, I can do good. I would drive over, and she worked at a school where she was the front office. So like when you walked in, she's right there. And she would be all smiling. And sometimes there would be coworkers in there with her, and they all knew me as this great husband. And oh my God. And they would literally make comments like, oh my God, he's the greatest husband. You're so lucky. He just brings over your stuff when you forget it. Oh, I know. Isn't he so great? And she would give me a hug and a kiss goodbye. Like, then I would go off to work, and I would feel good for part of the day. But then every day I dreaded coming home. How would it be when I got home? Because in the house, it was different.
So we talked about devaluation. We were talking about deprivation and reward. Another thing that will go on in narcissistically abusive relationships is gaslighting. And that's a hot topic these days, and the word is misused and it's made fun of even. My definition of gaslighting is the denial of a shared reality. That you know something, I know something, and you're going to say that you don't know it. So I'm holding a pen. We can all see that I'm holding a pen, and you say, there's no pen there. Like, no, there's definitely a pen. It's right here. I used to give an example where I would take the pen when I was teaching this class in person. I would take the pen and I would sort of toss it into the middle of the circle. We were all sitting in a circle. And as the example of gaslighting, I would say, oops, I dropped my pen. And then have someone else say to me, no, you threw the pen at me. You didn't drop it. You threw it at me. No, I just dropped it. It was an accident. I just dropped it. No, you didn't. You threw it at me. Right. So it's a shared reality. We know what happened, but someone is going to twist it into something else. Do you have examples of gaslighting from your experiences?
She had an older Tahoe as well, and her daughter would drive it to work. I maintained this vehicle. It was in really good running condition, and our driveway was at a very steep angle. One night, her daughter comes home late, about 10 p.m. from work, and she's scared to death. And I ran up to her. I'm like, oh my God, I'm on the couch. Tammy's back in the back somewhere in the house. And I said, what's wrong? And she goes, oh my God, the Tahoe just rolled down the driveway, and it's sitting in the middle of the street. And I'm like, what? And she's a brand new driver. She's 16 at the time. So her mom comes out screaming, oh my God, what's wrong? And I said, let me figure this out. So I run out there. Tahoe's shut off. It's sitting in the middle of the street. And I get in the car, and I immediately see that she accidentally left it in drive. So when she took her foot off the brake and got out, it rolled down the driveway. I said, okay. So I put it in park, started it, put it in the driveway. Everything's fine. I go in and I look over at my ex-stepdaughter, and I said, are you okay? I made sure are you okay? She's like, yes. And I said, you accidentally left it in drive. And she's like, oh my God, I did. I said, it's okay. It's okay, sweetheart. It's it's an innocent mistake. It's not a big deal. Everything's fine. But what I want to do is back up and tell you, as I walked in the house, I remember distinctly thinking somehow, some way, this is going to be turned into my fault. I just knew it. And dreading going into the house, and I go into the house and I tell her this. And then Tammy looks at me and immediately goes, this is not her fault. This is your fault. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, here's the gaslighting. She goes, we've had this conversation, and I told you that my Tahoe jumps out of gear all of the time. I'm like, what? Like, her Tahoe has never jumped out of gear. I said, no, your Tahoe doesn't. Yes, we've had this conversation multiple times, and you told me you would fix it, and you never fixed it. So this is your fault. And we go back and forth. So she's trying to bend my reality and tell me I've asked you to fix this over and over and over, and you've never fixed it. Well, the worst part is still yet to come for me. So as we're arguing, she starts screaming at me, and I'm trying to walk away. And her daughter is witnessing all of this. And she finally turns around and she screams at me at the top of her lungs and says, Doug Buggle never fixes anything until someone almost dies. My daughter could have been decapitated because of you. How do you think that makes you feel? And this was like a year before I left, and so it breaks my heart because I was really close with her daughter. I'm just thinking, what is she thinking during this time? It sucks to even think back at that.
It is a great example. And one thing that I have zeroed in on is what I call content versus intent. As the survivor, as the target, we will get sort of caught up on the content of what was said in those moments of devaluation or gaslighting, the nasty, really asshole things that get said to you that make you feel like shit about yourself, or they're attacking your character or accusing you of things. We'll get caught up on the content of that. That's where the over-explaining then comes in later, because it's like, well, that's not true. Here's the reality. It was this, it was this, it was this. And you play it out in your mind over and over again, the content of what was said. But when we back up and look at what was the intent, that is really the important message. Not what was said, but why it was said, that it was said with intent. And sometimes people will ask me, well, how do I know what the intent was? And I'll say, how did it make you feel? Like they couldn't rely on you? How did it make you feel?
It made me feel like I wasn't a good person. I wasn't a good husband. I wasn't a good stepfather. It made me feel like confused. I knew the reality that we hadn't had that conversation. I knew the reality that car was perfectly operable. And it also made me wish that I had recorded it. Towards the end, right before I told her that I wanted a temporary separation, we were in marriage counseling. And our marriage counselor specifically told us if there's anything big that you're going to have to tell the person that might cause a fight or disruption, hold on to it until the session. And I distinctly remember her telling us that. Well, I had had enough. I was really just out of my mind at this point. And I wanted to tell her, what was going on with me. And she knew something was wrong. And she started yelling and screaming at me. My son was there doing his homework and he begged me not to. My son knew. I confided in him. He was old enough. I confided in him that I was going to ask for a separation and he was all for it. But he was like begging me not to do it with him there. And I almost did, which I feel really bad about because she was baiting me. She was bringing me into it. And when I told her I'm going to wait until therapy, she said, what are you talking about? I said, our therapist said this. And she's like, no, she didn't. Our therapist never, gaslighting, here we go. Our therapist never told that. I'm going to call her. I'm going to call her and ask her. And she got me again because this was a Friday night and our therapy wasn't until Monday. And I ended up dishing the goods on the next day on Saturday. When in hindsight, I should have waited and said, call her. I should have just dropped it and said, call her on Monday. The gaslighting worked again, because then I started thinking in my mind, did the therapist say that or not? But I knew she had.
Right. That's the thing, is that it really does eventually make you question your own reality, and it removes trust that you have in yourself. Like, can I even trust myself to see things clearly? Because I thought I knew, but apparently I don't. And it really just scrambles your brain. And that's the whole point of these narcissistically abusive, manipulative tactics, is it works to rob you of your own reality. And therefore you have to be living at the whim of this narcissistic person, because what you think, feel, and experience doesn't matter, doesn't exist, gets devalued, gets mischaracterized. I got two more questions I'm going to ask you, Doug. And the first one is, if you're talking to someone who is currently in a narcissistically abusive relationship, it's happening now. And let's say it's a man, and there's a moment where you just think something's not right. Something's just not quite right. There's something wrong here. I can't put my finger on it, but something's wrong. Let's say that someone has at least made it to that part where they just recognize that this isn't right. What would you have to say to that person?
you need to get out and you need to get away from that person immediately. First off, do not engage with that person. Gray rock them, teach them about gray rocking. Do not engage in their nonsense. Do not fight with them. Do not, because you'll never win that battle. I would say quietly document. I don't know about state laws, depending on where they are, but try to record as much as you can. Don't engage. Set up an exit plan. Obviously, that looks different if you have children or if you don't have children. Set up an exit plan. Make sure you have all your proper documents in order. Get everything set up to where when you are ready to leave, you're very well prepared for the onslaught of the discard that will be coming your way. Because mine came at me huge. I was falsely accused of domestic violence and abuse. I had a temporary, she tried putting a domestic violence restraining order on me, which failed. Everything she did failed. But nonetheless, she won in her head because she drugged me through court. She did all these horrible things to me just to get the attention and to try to ruin me, which did not work, thankfully. But because the onslaught of the discard is brutal. And so I think you need to prepare yourself for, doesn't matter how much you think this person loves you, they don't. They're just using you for their supply, and you're very easily replaceable. It doesn't matter if you've been with them 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, 40 years. And so just make a plan, educate yourself, go online, and whether it's at your work, at the library, find a place where you can go online, look up narcissism, look up your situation. That's what I did. And watch YouTube videos, listen to podcasts. Take the advice from the expert.
That's really great advice. Yeah, there's going to be the discard and there's going to be the smear campaign, right? You're definitely going to be the bad guy, and getting used to that. Taking the advice of the experts. Really, really good advice, Doug. Thank you so much. Now, the last question that I have is, you're living today in recovery. You are, on the other side of the abuse, and you have begun to rebuild your life. And you wrote a book, which is really awesome. So many people that I talk to, I think, you should write a book, and they never do, and you did. And so that's fantastic. But if you had something to say to someone who was on the other side of it, perhaps, and what is important for survivors in terms of living life today, a healthy life today?
Well, first of all, you need to surround yourself with an army of friends and family. If you have that, I know not everyone has that. I was fortunate to have an army of friends and family who surrounded me with love and compassion and let me go through what I was going through. But I think it's really important, before you can live that happy life, is you really need to learn you, find out about you. Go take yourself out to dinner. I know that sounds crazy. Take yourself on a date. Go to the gym. Go do the things you want to do by yourself. Don't feel guilty about, if you want to sit around on Sunday and watch football all day and eat chicken wings, do it. I mean, whatever makes you happy, do that. And then eventually, I know people say this, but eventually it will fade, and go to therapy, do whatever you want to do, hiking, whatever. For me, it was going to the gym. It was doing things on my own. It was hard. It was very hard because I'm always used to being around that other person. It was writing the book was a huge outlet for me. But what you will get out of it is one of the side benefits of joining this club that nobody wants to join is, you start to see the red flags. You start to see the red flags in other people that you come in touch with or encounter with, and not everyone's a narcissist, but you see the traits, and you see it, and you're able to avoid those people, and you're able to see, oh wow, okay, that's not a good thing they did or said, and you can avoid that. Especially when you begin to date again, your eyes are open to it. I've read a lot of comments and a lot of things from men where, I will never trust a woman again. I will live the rest of my life alone. They're the devil. I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to, never. It's not that we have trust issues. Some people say they do. In my opinion, it's, we just now know you're bullshit, and we're not going to put up with it. And so when I see the bullshit, I don't put up with it. And I quietly exit myself from that situation. Walking on eggshells. always making sure in the house that is the garbage taken out, are the dishes put away, is this clean, is that clean, is everything done the way she likes it before she gets home from work. I mean, that was my mind for 12 years. And I am now in such a loving, amazing, wonderful relationship with my girlfriend. I still to this day have that thought in my head, and I look around, is everything in order, is everything put away? And it doesn't matter. I find myself still in my brain once in a while, that thought is still there, which means I am in recovery. It's so hard to explain, but you get it.
I do. I definitely get it. There is, on the other side of abuse, there's a very hopeful life that can be really rich, fulfilling, rewarding when you do find someone who is your actual match, who deserves the love that you were trying to give to this other person. In a sense, what you're describing is this shift in the flow of energy. So before, when you're in the abusive relationship, you are pouring yourself into this relationship and into the other person. You're loving them as hard as you can love someone, that you're giving of yourself. You're to the point that you're not doing anything for yourself. You put them first. You put the relationship before you. And then in recovery, you have to turn the Titanic and fight against the current and learn how to take that same amount of effort that you poured into that other person and pour it into yourself. You're learning to love yourself. You're learning to nurture yourself and to not hold yourself to the fire over silly little things, and recognize that you are okay, it is okay, and you deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. That you alone are good enough, just as you. But when you've been with somebody for a long time who has torn you down and made you feel like that, like I said before, you can't even trust your own perceptions of anything, that the things you thought about yourself aren't true, as it turns out. We have to relearn again and who we are and get to know ourselves again. Who am I? What do I want? What do I like? And then give yourself permission to take yourself out to dinner, like you said, is a great idea. Or even if you could get away for a few days and take yourself on a little trip would be fantastic. But you're essentially learning how to love yourself and realizing that it's okay to put yourself first.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And the other thing you find yourself doing in those relationships is you talk about, being not good enough, and they're accusing you of all these things, and they're little things that, you may be doing or not doing, is you find yourself sometimes lying to them or hiding something that is otherwise innocent, but you just don't want to hear it. You don't want to deal with it. You don't want to confront it. So then you do hide little things. I'm not talking major things like infidelity, or no, I'm not talking about that, like little things. You start hiding things from them, like maybe a credit card bill or, something like vaping. Oh my God, that was the biggest thing, in the world. I had to hide it from her. All these different things. And I know vaping's not good for me and I plan on quitting, but at the same time, it's like I had to hide it, but I'm a grown ass man, right? And then what happens is when they find out, it's, oh, if you're lying to me about that, then what else are you lying to me about? So you are cheating on me. So you are doing this. So you are doing that. And so you end up just hiding little things. And it's a horrible cycle to be in, It
is. And I call those things countermeasures. Those are the things that go on in the abusive relationship that you do that are actually out of character for you. It's something that you wouldn't do in any other circumstance, but that this particular circumstance has sort of forced you into it or put you in the position of feeling the need to turn the tables or to create some sort of balance or to, I'll show you, I'll hurt me. These little games that we play, these countermeasures that take place because there's such a power imbalance in the relationship, or you're so deprived, right? Some people, a countermeasure might be having an extramarital affair. Someone else, their countermeasure might be sabotaging someone's computer for fun, Or another countermeasure might be telling a white lie. There's so many things that we do in the relationship that we wouldn't normally do. And then we have shame over those things that, oh gosh, I did do that thing and that was bad. Well, maybe I deserve this, or maybe I'm just like them because I threw something or I name called, right? And we have to remember that no, you're being psychologically abused. This is psychological warfare. These are the same tactics used by, defense entities on the planet of how to break a person down, right? And this is what's happening in your home. So yeah, you're going to do things. You're going to act out of character. You're going to do something to try to create a sort of balance or get your needs met that aren't being met. But later on, we have to learn to forgive ourselves for those things and recognize that that just was because of the situation that we were in. Where are you with forgiving yourself, Doug?
I'm pretty good. I think I'm at that point now where I forgave myself for my role in the relationship and the things I did. And if you read my book, you're going to learn a lot more. There's things that I did that I am not proud of. That I regret. It's important to know that I've held myself accountable, and I'm an open book, and there's things in there that are embarrassing. There's things in there that are real and raw. What made the book happen was I wrote her a 16-page email that I never sent her. I was pretty much calling her out on all of her shit. I never sent it to her, told to journal. I was told to write things down as I was going through this. And when I read it to several people, they're like, you need to write a book. Like, you have so much here. And I'm like, no way, I don't know how to write a book. Well, anyway, I ended up writing the book, and that 16-page letter is the final chapter. There's a huge documentary going to be released at the end of this year called Empathy Not Included, The Narcissist Handbook. It's directed by Mark Vicente. Dr. Ramani's in it. It's about a 2-hour full feature. I don't know what streaming service it's going to be on yet. It might be out in theaters first. I am featured in that documentary. I've got a big part in it. I'm very proud of it. Mind you, it was filmed 2.5 years ago, so I'm sort of not that same person anymore. But I get very emotional in it, very, very emotional, because I was really on the cusp of this when this happened. So be on the lookout for that. Empathy Not Included.
That sounds amazing, Doug. And the book is called Goodbye, Tammy. Third Time Was Not a Charm: Surviving Narcissistic Abuse. And I really want to thank you, Doug, for spending this time with me today to talk about your experiences. And I know that the book will help a lot of people. And we're also going to be on the lookout for that documentary. We're hoping that by you talking about this, by me talking about this, and spreading the information, raising awareness, that we can help people recognize when it's happening, get out of the situation, and learn how to live a healthy life free from abuse. That's what we're aiming for. Thank you for watching or listening. Goodbye.